people are consuming your media as if it's food, and it's absolutely having an impact on your body and your mind.
Hello, everyone. I'm Brian Sethurst in Los Angeles.
And I'm Alison Norrington in London, and welcome to the Story Hour.
Please subscribe, like, and if you want to know when the next episode is, and we've got 30 of them now, we're just ending season 1, click that bell. The Story Hour sits at the intersection of storytelling and technology. We bring you the story behind the stories, how it's written, how it's produced, how it's distributed, and even the personal stories behind the storytellers themselves.
We talk with the master writers, producers, directors, authors, and technologists, covering it all, from film and television to literature, virtual and augmented reality, and more, as well as the innovations in production, technology, and distribution that are changing the how of storytelling.
Our guest today is CEO of Healium. That is Healium, a virtual and augmented reality tool for human performance that's powered by the user's own brainwaves and heart rate. After 20 years as a TV reporter covering trauma, the media diet of reporting the day's headlines ultimately made our guest sick. She developed Healium for herself as well as the 41 million others who struggle daily with anxiety.
Our guest is also a former interactive TV news journalist for the NBC, ABC, and CBS affiliates in Missouri, a 12-time Mid-America Emmy Award-winning TV reporter. She has 25 years of experience building unique media franchises and decades reporting about the world's negativity and trauma in Sri Lanka, Zambia, Guatemala, Indonesia, and Congo. Please welcome Sarah Hill.
Hello, Sarah Hill.
Hello, it's great to be with you, you story nerds.
I am so glad. I didn't tell Allison this, but the first time I met you, we connected. It was instant. And we connected on the level of storytellers. And this was at the very beginning of VR. We're talking back. This was at the very beginning of VR, but it was only 6 years ago when I stopped to think about it. But you started out as a storyteller. You started out as a reporter. You had all that in your background. And when you first used VR, because I want to get us from point A to B, when you first used VR, you were using virtual reality for storytelling. Can you talk a little bit about that and what attracted you to it to begin with? And then we'll talk about how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. So started out creating experiences for brands. We had the luck to have some large brands send us all over the world, the Amazon, Congo, and Zambia to capture immersive media. And at the time, we were giving a group of aging veterans virtual tours to see their memorials in Washington, D.C. And it was a totally new medium, as Brian described. And it was disconcerting for a storyteller because that frame that we had to have control over the frame for decades as storytellers, suddenly there was no frame and the viewer had that control. So it was a very different way to tell stories that I struggled with at first. But eventually we learned how to do it through this brand storytelling and then started giving tours to aging vets so they can see their memorials, which ultimately is a long story, but it led us to Healium.
Well, I can remember watching the reactions of the vets as they got to do the tour because this was the honor flight, right? And
yeah, so, absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit about honor flight? Because it's your background as a storyteller. And you're recognizing people's reactions to the stories that you were telling that I think actually led you down the technology path that you're on. So can you talk a little bit about Honor Flight?
Yeah, absolutely. And these ultimately are therapeutic stories. So Honor Flight is a nonprofit organization. They have more than 130 hubs all around the nation. And about a decade ago, I helped form, along with some great volunteers, the Honor Flight Hub here in Central Missouri. I was a television news reporter, and I had been going on covering them, doing stories about the Honor Flight Network. We went on about a dozen flights in 1 year. And when you're surrounded by those amazing stories of those World War II veterans, it gave us the impetus to want to form a hub in central Missouri. So got together a great group of volunteers, and to make a long story short, that hub continues today in central Missouri. They've flown thousands of vets to see their memorials, but I would get calls from some of these veterans' families saying, my husband can't go. He's on too much oxygen. He has a heart condition, and his doctor says that he physically can't. He's too weak to travel. And so we started, technologists, what do we have in our own skills to be able to allow him to feel like he's at the memorial, even though they're not physically able to travel. We had been using Google Glass, and I would go to the memorials in Washington, D.C. and live stream from my face, and they would join on laptops in VA homes. And we did that for about 2 years. And we would be the arms and the legs of the veteran walking through the memorial, and they would tell us what they wanted to see. But obviously that does not scale. You have to have physical volunteers. And about the same time, virtual reality was coming into existence. And we thought, we can capture it once with a camera, ship the goggles to the veteran, and we don't have to have a live person do it. And they can be at the memorial as if it was in their own living room. Not knowing how important those stories that we did, and we did the World War II, Vietnam, Korea, Women's Memorial, and we also shot some on the USS Nimitz out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And now that the pandemic hit, all of those honor flights are grounded. And so, sadly, there are a lot of men and women who will pass this year, having never had the opportunity to see their memorial. So we are working to get them kits. We just announced a new partnership with T-Mobile today for that, and the Honor Flight Network. It's just using story to take them to see their memorials. And then it's a long story, but how we formed Healium from that is we noticed, as Brian said, when they were in the goggles, their body would soften. They would take deep cleansing breaths. They take off the goggles and they say, I like how I felt. Can I watch it again? And journalists, naturally curious person, what is happening to their physiology? And can we create this media and stories in a way that actually has a therapeutic impact on people, or could shift their brain patterns, lower their heart rate, make them feel better? And so I teamed up with my co-founder, who's a neurofeedback specialist. He did a brain map on a variety of individuals who were using Healium, and saw that very quickly this kind of media, more powerful than regular 2D media, because inside the goggles or even inside your mobile device, it tricks the brain into thinking that isn't, I'm just watching it through the filter of the fixed rectangle. I'm actually at the waterfall or at the beach.
So now you're based, well, I want to go back for 2 seconds. Was there an aha moment for you? What was that aha moment?
Yes. So his name was Mr. Smith. He was a veteran who we were giving a virtual tour of. And his caretaker told us he's not able to lift his arms above his head. And I have a photo of this. And so when he was inside the goggles, halfway through the experience, he had his arms above his head when was reaching out for the people that he saw inside the screen. And his daughter, who was his caretaker, said, I haven't seen him do that in a very long time. I'm not sure what he's seeing, but it motivated him some way that, reality hasn't. And in a lot of this testing, Dr. Tarrant sent me back a brain map.
So I just want to say Jeff Tarrant, right? Mm-hmm. Who's a neuroscientist, yes, and your partner.
He is a neurofeedback specialist, counseling psychologist. He wrote the book on neuromeditation. He's based in Eugene, Oregon. But he said, let's just do some EEG testing to see, how are these experiences impacting physiology. And what he shared with me was my aha moment when the picture of a red fast activity in the brain immediately before Healium, and then 4 minutes after, that fast activity had significantly reduced. So it was like you had put someone in a warm bath or a walk in the park, and they didn't even have to leave their living room. So right then, and I always knew in the back of my head that media somehow impacted people because it makes us cry, it makes us laugh, all the things. But using it as a therapeutic, drugless, non-harmful coping mechanism, that was the aha moment where I realized that we needed to turn our ship from a service-based company that was creating experiences for brands and pivot to a product-based company that could create some clinically validated experiences to downshift the nervous system, shift brain patterns, lower heart rate, and allow people to self-manage their stress.
That is so beautiful. And it reminds me of, there was a video released earlier this year, you definitely saw it, of the ballerina lady. And it was amazing, wasn't it? And they played the music to her, and I think she was in a wheelchair or something. And within minutes, she was like, her muscle memory was all of the moves and the poses and everything that she'd done as a younger woman, as a ballerina. There's something in there that you're unlocking. And it sounds to me like you've tuned in to the capability of that. I mean, I looked at Healium on my phone with the AR version, and my family was watching a football match, a soccer match, and it was crazy. And I thought, God, this is stressing me out. So I went to the waterfall, and then I went, is it Switzerland with the snow scene? And it's just so lovely, even just on my phone, no headset, to just like go around the room. I love that, of course, with AR, the image follows you. And even in that situation, on my phone, crazy sports on the TV, everyone's shouting, it was beautiful. So even on that kind of low barrier to entry way of using Healium, you've really got something that I feel post-pandemic is even more important than possibly it had been before. There's a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety.
Mental health emergency, 25% of 18 to 24-year-olds have suicidal ideation. And so we need some drugless, non-harmful coping mechanisms. And yes, augmented reality is a great tool, far more engaging than 2D media. And we're just taking those VR experiences, reducing the barrier to entry and putting them in magic portals in AR that you can walk through, a teleport through in your living room, and then you're inside another beautiful magical kingdom, a nebula in space. You can float through a brain and see all the different synapses. And discover the healing powers that you have inside yourself if you connect a wearable.
But using the EEG, sorry, Brian, just wondering, using the EEG, like, and the mapping that you've done, like you've overlaid the storytelling onto like a natural kind of rhythm in terms of how we respond and react, which kind of takes things to another level. Because I've said to Brian before, I like putting the headset on and just going into the cinema and sitting in an empty cinema, and I look round at all the red velvet chairs and there's no one in there but me. That alone, I love it, especially when things are stressful. I don't even watch anything, but you've kind of taken that and like turned up all the dials on it, that there's actually a crafted story and a crafted experience. It's fantastic.
Well, we are still learning, telling stories with your brain patterns and heart rate attached, presented unique challenges that we had to discover how you did that. And ultimately, it's not just lean back experiences. These are training experiences of sorts that you are learning to self-regulate. And that's the issue right now, is people can't self-regulate their brain. If they could, we might not have as much medication subscriptions or therapists. Now, Healium is not a replacement for psychotropic medication. It's not a replacement for counseling, which is one of the best things that you can do for yourselves. But allowing the user to learn to heal themselves and to self-regulate their brain patterns is something that even people as an adult have not learned.
Yeah, we don't know how to do that. You said to me before, we're in the stress Olympics and nobody's trained, right? We don't know how to do that. We're not taught that at school. Our parents don't know how to teach it to us. Like, it's a lack of education, not a lack of, desire or essential kind of things that we should do. We just don't know how to do it.
I think part of it is the interpretation that you're not, if you're meditating or you're even just sitting still, that stillness is non-productive. And so physical exercise, that's productive. You'll have evidence. But emotional exercise, even to the point of developing emotional intelligence through helium, because it does develop emotional intelligence, it develops social intelligence. But I think we're I think your timing is kind of perfect because when you look, okay, so I attended ViveCon this morning, the keynote speech,
Yeah.
and when they were talking about Vive for Business, and they have an enterprise storefront, but they talked about all the practical applications, and then they said at the end, we even have free applications for you to manage your stress, for you to decompress. So it's a realization on their part that wellness, and you know yourself, Sarah, because you're talking to these people who the heads of wellness are at corporations. Like now there are entire departments dedicated to the wellness of the well-being of the people. So you have a cultural revolution taking place for mutual respect and honoring, but now this is also about honoring the self and honoring what needs to be healed. And what I love about the brilliance of this is that it totally came out of your storytelling experience, but it also came out of your story worlding experience. So what you did for veterans, all of the stories that you've told in news, you just wanted people to be closer to the story. When VR came along, this is just my observation, Sarah, of having known you. When VR came along, it's like, okay, now I can take them into the story with me. And then with the veterans being able to see that once they were in that story world, there was a physiological reaction because everybody talked about the empathy response. Everybody talked about, tricking the brain and all that, but there wasn't the kind of evidence, except in academia, there wasn't the kind of evidence that you were creating for, excuse me for saying so, a commercial product. One that says, okay, this is based in science, folks. This is what we know. And what I think will be really interesting as you grab data and you go along from your experience is just my observation. I wanted to ask you about this is, do you think that you will contribute with this to what I think will become the ethical responsibility of storytellers and virtual reality creators about the effect that their content has on the body?
Yeah, that's a great point, and so important for your storytellers who are listening to know that absolutely what they create impacts physiology in not just our peer-reviewed research, but tons of peer-reviewed research out there about immersive media, and the unique implications that has on the storyteller to ensure that they're not doing something that makes users disoriented or sick, or audio that's coming from the front that appears to be coming from the front but actually comes from the back. And because it is such a powerful immersive medium, that those creators have a very high responsibility to ensure that they do no harm, which is usually a mantra in the medical community, but in this VR-ceuticals, AR-ceuticals, digiceuticals, whatever you want to call them, people are consuming your media as if it's food, and it's absolutely having an impact on your body and your mind. And so, you don't want to make food that makes them sick.
I'm just going to put in a little side plug, if you will. We do a Thursday at noon, every Thursday at noon, we do a clubhouse and we explore different areas. You brought up the physiology of storytelling, which I think is an amazing topic. So Allison, let's make a note and let's have Sarah contribute to a clubhouse. I think, there has been visceral reaction when you're in the movies, and there's visceral reaction to really good storytelling, but there's a continuum to it. And you're at the end of the continuum where you're immersed, whereas you're no longer at arm's length. So I think what Allison and I would like to do is we actually have an instructional video that's on your website, which is at, what is your website?
Tryhealium.com.
Tryhealium.com. I remembered it to find it. I just couldn't remember it to say it right now. So I would like to play that video so that people can know what it's really about. So this could show my own technical limitations, but let's give it let's give it a shot, shall we?
Hi, I'm Sarah Hill, CEO of Healium. Thank you for trying our products. The simplest way to use Healium is without a wearable. These are beautiful, nature-based escapes that have the option to be powered by your brainwaves and your heart rate in virtual or augmented reality environments. Let's talk about the difference between virtual and augmented reality. Virtual reality includes these goggles that you put on and you're completely taken somewhere else. You don't have the ability to see the real world. All you see are beautiful nature-based escapes inside a computer-generated environment or inside 360-degree video. Augmented reality, on the other hand, you have the ability to see the real world. You're just using your mobile device in order to superimpose holograms across the screen.
Gently slow your breathing.
If you're using a wearable interaction, here's what you need to know. This is a BrainLink Lite EEG headband. You'll notice on the front of the headband there are sensors that are capturing your brainwave activity. Inside the Healium app, you have the ability to power the experience either with calm or focus. If you're meeting that certain threshold for a particular brain pattern, the firefly that you see on the screen will go up. So if that waveform is going up, you are meeting the mark. If it's going down, you need to recall more of a calm memory or more of a focused memory in order to try to make that firefly go up. If you see the background go red or the image dims, that's an indication that you're not meeting the mark. So that's how you use Healium, either with a wearable or without a wearable integration. A reminder, you can use our augmented reality products as well by searching Healium AR in your app store. For more information, you can go to tryhealium.com, check out our science section and all of our peer-reviewed journals. A reminder, your thoughts have power to control things, not only in the virtual world, but the real world as well.
That is freaking brilliant. All your on-camera experience comes to bear.
I know, I lived in a box for decades. They let me out for good behavior, and then I actually built something. So, yeah.
You know, I don't know if you remember this. I do have a bit of a competitive side. But when I first tried this with you, I actually was trying too hard. And the harder I tried, the worse it got. And so I was actually stressing out. I remember you said, don't try so hard. But I was actually stressing out over not being able to achieve, which was completely the opposite of what the intention was. And it was like, I guess there was a part of me that wanted to know, to show myself that I could do it. So even that realization about stressing out over relaxing was a lesson, and I hadn't even really experienced the program yet. And I think
that's like a friend of mine who bought a bracelet with gems on it to relax her, and it kept coming undone, and she got so stressed with it she threw it across the room and broke it.
Shortly after, we've installed difficulty settings. So everybody's brain patterns are different. And so while it gets a baseline when you come into the app, you can adjust it easy, medium, or hard. And we always encourage people to put it all the way easy, which makes it impossible to fail, because you've never controlled anything with your brain patterns before. And so it's incredibly awkward, much like lifting weights, when it was incredibly awkward the first time you used that muscle, and you're building that muscle memory. So the notion that when you come to Healium and you're using a wearable that you're going to be relaxed. No, this is training. It's a training tool. You are training your mind. And with that training comes, different levels, and you have to form the ability to recognize what memory you need to recall, or what object or sensation you need to focus on in order to make that firefly go up.
I remember you had asked me if I had a pet, and you told me to think of my dog. And I told you that my dog had passed, and you said, this doesn't matter, just think of your dog, think of that. And it worked, and it was just lovely. So we are actually, before we all stress out on time, we are actually at the end of our first segment. We're going to welcome you back next week when, as we say, we'll all be wearing the same things, because this is about sustainability, not using too much laundry detergent one week to the next, stuff like that. But we want to talk about the various applications for the future and what you have in store, and also the state of the industry, where we are post-pandemic, what we're coming out of, what we can expect from virtual reality, augmented reality, extended reality, and what the opportunities will be there for self-care. So we'll be back with Sarah Hill next week on the Story Hour, and Allison and I hope you will join us then. We'll see you next week.
See you then.